and we're live on Facebook, Freedom Broadcasters, and YouTube.
Thanks, Arnold. And this is the Awakening Podcast. You find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org, and you find everything about me. Scan the QR code, you see my 6 podcasts. And I've also just launched a school podcasting course. So you can go in, and if you're looking to start a podcast or you're an existing podcaster and you want to improve, go to school.com/podfather, and you find everything about Arnold on braingym.fitness. So today is a very important and interesting topic, one that I've been looking at in more detail from the minute the lockdown happened. But I suppose, Arnold, you might as well take it away.
Yeah, I thought we could discuss it, and a lot of people are discussing things in looking back. What happened? You called it the lockdown, and what happened, and what's the impact, and the process, and who's evil and who's good, and what happening. I think a lot of people are talking about these things. Yeah? There are a few things which now come out in the open and are no longer hidden or suppressed or whatever, which I think are very important for healthy people. So that is something we need to know. That's one aspect I think we should discuss. The other aspect is that a little bit of the bigger picture, because otherwise we're just focusing on the C-19 thing, but there's much more happening. And I want to share as a starting point to what they call, and again, it's, well, in that case, the AI is very useful. They call it major global vaccine programs. And there are 3. One is called the Immunization Agenda 2030. Have you ever heard about that?
Well, I've heard of the 2030 agenda, which
well, might be, of course, it will be related, but it's called the Immunization Agenda, and it coordinates worldwide vaccination strategies to cover diseases such as measles, polio, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, DTP, hepatitis B, and tuberculosis, aiming for universal access by 2030. That's a huge program. That's a huge program. So that was number one. Number 2 is called Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. I'm pretty sure Mr. Gates is involved in that.
he is, yeah.
Yeah. And it focuses on childhood immunizations and aims to vaccinate at least 500 million children from 2026, so that's next year, to 2030, covering 20 plus vaccines, including pneumococcal, rotavirus, yellow fever, and HPV. Totally incredible. Totally incredible. These are global programs. And number 3 is, they call it COVAX with an X. COVAX enabled worldwide access to C-19 vaccines, especially in low and middle income countries, and coordinates with humanitarian actors for epidemic outbreaks. So these are 3 programs which are being driven from now until 2030, and they're rolled out globally.
No, I think this is going to be an interesting one, though, because as always, we never discuss what we're going to say because we want to hear each other's kind of opinions, and just we do our own research. I've gone the opposite direction because I'm kind of going, hey, we've been duped from the start. So I'll start off with this one. Edward Jenner, who was like the guy that created the kind of cowpox, right? So there was a Dr. Pearson wrote to Jenner immediately and said, for God's sake, take the horse out or you will darn the whole business, because it was cow and horse pox before. So that was the lie that they did. And I'll just read a little bit on this. Following the incident, Jenner wrote to a friend and said, I am on the lookout to be able to make a fortune and to appease the public. Then, as Dr. Hadwin related in his famous lecture, Jenner decided to take the horse out, but he was still faced with the problem of finding genuine cowpox. This he was never able to do. In sheer desperation, he fell back upon spontaneous cowpox, although he had declared previously it was absolutely useless in preventing smallpox. And it is this spontaneous cowpox vaccine, this which was denounced by Edward Jenner, this which was scouted by the so-called inventor himself, an absolute useless in protecting against smallpox. This is the stuff that has been used today under the name of pure calf limp smallpox vaccine, and before, which was the medical profession in howling, which professor. So this book is the poison needle. I might have mentioned it before, by Eleanor McBean. This is, I think, in the 50s, something like that, 1950, that the book, and there's other stuff I'll cover now later on and that. But that's kind of just showing the whole thing at the start was a lie, just kind of giving you jabs.
Yeah, but this was targeted at animals?
No, this was the one that they're saying people cowpox, so they get a jab to stop them getting cowpox, smallpox. So the
Oh, okay, I
whole,
was confused by the word
yeah,
cow.
yeah. So the whole thing was a lie from the very start. And even if we look, I mean, people now are kind of aware, but if we look at kind of when we were younger, I mean, you probably had less darts than me, but I don't know what we got. But it just kept increasing. And then we look at all of the diseases and autism and cancers and everything. It's just gone through the roof. So the more jabs they give people, the more sick they become. And they're just
Absolutely.
so, there is a correlation.
Yeah, it's if I got the number correct, is that now children in the US when they're 10 or 11, they've had 72.
US, yeah,
72.
I know.
I mean, it's like you're full of holes. It's like, eh?
And I I've said it before that if these things worked, right, which they don't, I mean, but if they did, and it was a case of I got it and my partner got it, then our DNA and everything, and we create a child, that child would have our DNA, which is with all the antibody, which everything that we produce, the mother would be it with the baby in her belly. It would get everything that the mother has with the blood and everything. So why does the child, as soon as it's born, get a load of jabs? That doesn't even make sense if you start looking at it like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's weird. In that case, is that why I think the moment you're born, they start piercing you. It's like, yeah.
Pincushion, it's like voodoo.
How do you call it? Well, I don't know whether it's the English word, but they call it a fakir. Yeah, so it's like the guy who's sitting on needles. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. But it's totally incredible. So, and it's not only these programs; it's also so on top of these global programs, there are what they call specialized initiatives. And there are emergency stockpiles exist for a rapid response against yellow fever, cholera, meningitis, Ebola, and they're managed with groups which also, well, they're all like UN type of groups, WHO, UNICEF, IFRC, and MSF. And then there are the humanitarian programs, prioritize delivery in conflict zones, so when there's a war or something like that, and marginalized communities where they use the Red Cross, Red Crescent Society, and local outreach. So when there's a war, it's like, oh, we need to give people vaccine. What is that got to do with that? Yeah. And the last one, I'm not sure, but it's like what they're now promoting heavily is what they call HPV vaccine. That's for cervical cancer prevention. Is promoted globally with a target of 90% coverage. That's almost everyone. By 2030, now introduced in 76% of the country. Totally incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it causes what it's supposed to prevent. That's the sad thing.
yeah, yeah, and it's absolutely being promoted, and this is another angle I wanted to is that I was thinking about this is like Well, what you said is like from the beginning, it's been a lie. But still, to this very day, there's this huge separation because between people who are in the know and people who have no fucking clue. And the no fucking clue category is very well behaving citizens who think they're obedient and think they're doing a good job. And those are the people who typically only have access and read the MSM, the mainstream media, traditional media. So newspapers, hey, I got a letter from in the Netherlands. What is happening now is that the government sends you a letter. It's like, hey, it's time for your C-19 vaccine. It's the autumn again. Hey, it's time for the flu injection. Why don't you get your update? People get letters. I used to get these letters. So, but these people think by just, oh, okay, the government tells me to do that, so I'm going to do that. And they have no idea about what it means to their health. And even like the news is now coming out because Trump is opening up a little bit, is like what the drastically negative impacts are on your health. Well, you can get cancer, you can die from it, but these people don't know because they got no access to that. So it's a schism. Is that an English word? Yeah. So a schism between people who are just think that they are good citizens, and by doing so they destroy their own health and of their partners and children and others. And there are other people who say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that," which is really weird. Yeah.
If we look at, when they were forcing people to get jabbed, I know somebody in Poland that died from it, someone in the UK, someone in Ireland, a few in Ireland, and in the States as well. That's people I know. Did I know anybody who got so-called COVID without being kind of given all the toxins and stuff like that? No. And all the people that I knew that got sick, constantly sick, were the people that were getting booster number 4 to 6 that just kept going, and they're just sick the whole time. What I want to touch on, I want to kind of, I'm staying back a bit just to kind of show people how this was trickery from the start. In 1860, the Encyclopedia Britannica, the 8th edition, stated, "Nothing is more likely to prove hurtful to the cause of vaccination and render the public careless of securing to themselves its benefits than the belief that they would submit to revaccination every 10 to 15 years. Years later, the 11th edition of Encyclopedia shows the changes of policy when it states it is desirable that the operation, the vaccination, should be repeated at the age of from 7 to 10 years and thereafter, if it is possible at intervals during life. The more often the vaccination, the greater the revenue to doctors and vaccine promoters. This is the prime consideration for business." So and most books, most everything have been doctored. So people are brainwashed. I understand how people fall for these things. And even if you look at the CNN and all about fair tactics, fair tactics, fair tactics. Look at the deaths, look at the deaths. And unfortunately, people don't realize BBC, pedophile protectors, and CNN, compulsive liars, and all the other channels around the world were just regurgitating lies. I have umpteen recordings of these scumbags and scumbag politicians just about to go out on the recording, and they all happy and laughing and joking, and then, "Oh, put on your mask, put on your mask." They should all be hung for that, because there was people got fair tacticked into going away and getting the jab, and some people got lifetime illnesses, and unfortunately others died, and they all got their golden handshakes. This was an international thing. This was going on. It was a big joke. Well, this is another one. Now there's just a few little ones on this, and then I'll touch on something else. But cancer, right? As I said, this is an old book, but it hasn't changed. The chief sole cause of monstrous cancer, Dr. Robert, right? So I have removed cancer from vaccinated arms exactly where the poison was injected. Cancer was practically unknown until cowpox vaccination began to be introduced. I have I have had to do with 20 cases of cancer, and I never saw a case of cancer in an unvaccinated person. So,
That explains why, well, whether it's hundreds of years or thousands of years ago, nobody was talking about cancer.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So that's huge, yeah? That's huge, yeah? So,
No, it's like it's basically just proving the whole lot is a lie. And
yeah.
this is one that I cover on this note because I think it's relevant. This is a newer one because I've had a lot of doctors on my show. I've had Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Tom Cohen, and a few other different people that specialize in this. So it's not just reading books and stuff like that. These are people that spent their career. Dr. Cohen's book, and I was trying to find, I have it somewhere, but I had bought it's a very good book. But it discusses the views on vaccination and childhood health in his book, Vaccines, Autoimmunity, and the Changing Nature of Childhood Illness. It's published in 2018. In this book, he claims that unvaccinated children are generally healthier and do not experience the typical illnesses that are common among vaccinated children. And I think the Amish would prove that as well. According to Cohen, the typical illnesses include asthma, allergies, chronic ear infections, ADD, attention deficit disorder, hay fever, chronic fever, weight loss, diarrhea, tuberculosis, autoimmune disease. So this is a doctor that was dealing with thousands of cases, and he could see those that were jabbed to the hilt were getting all these diseases. Those that weren't didn't have them. Another case to prove that the whole thing is a farce.
Yeah, and on top of that, when you mentioned the cancer thing, I got here a results from a study which tracked 300,000 people for 30 months. That's a lot. Yeah? So over a longer period of time, and the conclusion is the mRNA vaccines are causing cancer. It's just the conclusion of the study. There was over a 20% risk/increase in any type of cancer in the vaccinated. The mRNA did cause a turbo cancer epidemic. This is happening now. So it says it did cause, but it is causing. And the data is indisputable. This is just the latest in a long list of studies. But of course, governments, health officials, and legacy media will ignore this entirely. And this is the main thing. So there is so much proof out there that it's not good for you, but the people who need this message don't get this message. That's the tricky thing, because those are, like I said, law-abiding citizens. My father, well, he worked in the government. He was a military officer, and then he worked he was a judge. He would definitely say, government say, hey, you got to do this. He will do it because he's a law-abiding citizen. Whereas the reward for being law-abiding citizen, well, he's already that, but it's like, I'm sure he would have died. So it's like you get punished by doing what you're supposed to do as a thing. Oh, we're getting an alarm here. I cannot. It's well, it's very sad in itself. It's a missing child alert. So that overrules all my stuff because normally, well, I got everything on silent, but this explored, which is terrible. If you miss your child.
Absolutely.
Huh? But it's that's why I think it's so tricky. You misuse law-abiding people and people who just want to comply and be a good citizen, and by being that, you get destroyed.
You mentioned your father in the being a military man, and I've had a lot of people on my show that are from the military, and I always ask them, and even now they're lined up and they get a concoction of 10 shots plus.
Me too. I was in military. Yeah, I was still in the conscription, so I had to go in the military, and that's what I did. I got even a vaccination passport. It's like boom, this is what I did on my first day in the military.
So for me, it's like they're making people guinea pigs because when they get them to come in, you're no longer free. You're under their control. They can do what they want with you, so they kind of make you do it. So there's some stuff here. The soldiers disabled and killed by vaccinations. In a published article in Life magazine in April the 17th, 1950, General Eisenhower, in discussing the poor conditions of our fighting forces, said, I remember one time in Africa when we had only 4 divisions in the field and I was desperate for men. I found we had 6,000 men in hospital in Africa, unavailable for combat, and not one of them had suffered a wound. All of these men were in prime condition when they went to war. 47% of our young men were unfit for service and were rejected. This was an all-time high record of unfitness, indicating a decadent trend of our nation's health. But the most perfect men were inducted and sent to army camps to be shot full of vaccine poisons and other drugs. After this drastic course of malpractice, thousands of boys were invalided homes as physical and mental wrecks before and even they left American soil. Others were sent to the battlefield where they collapsed and had to be hospitalized. During World War One, heard that 7 men had dropped dead on the floor of the vaccinator's office at Birmingham after being vaccinated. I wrote to the government for verification and learned from the printed official government statement that in just the first 6 months of the war, there were not just 7 vaccinated deaths, but there were 62 deaths from yellow fever vaccine alone. The men received from 14 to 24 vaccinations of all varieties, but the full report of all vaccine deaths was not given. The casualties were probably tabulated under other causes. And it's like that's constant. And like if we look at is it 1918 flu? I remember looking into that and I was like, I was getting so much different reports. 20 million died, 50 million died, 100 million died. And I reckon it was like they were all jabbed and they killed them all. And they put it down to, oh, they died in the war. I reckon most of them were actually killed because of the jab.
So, what conclusions should we give the people, or what should we share with the people as
Well,
a concluding
one, and
statement?
how this kind of came about is I had seen that now in the UK, and it's probably going to happen everywhere else, they've got a nasal spray vaccine. So they're going into the schools, and some people are getting the letter saying, hey, we're doing this. And unfortunately, a lot of parents, fair, and they think, oh, we must do it. That you don't give it to them. Like they're spraying these toxins into the noses. And like I was even checking my mom, like when we were younger, I don't even know did they ask. I remember the nurse coming in and she just we'd all line up and get a jab. So they're kind of doing that now, but they're not doing one jab, they're doing a lot more. And I mean, even if you look at polio, like they said, oh, polio, and you get this one, where is it? Where you have a hole in your arm because of it. And that was caused by spraying the crops that caused polio. And then they took that out and injected to people giving polio. And if we look at all the stuff they spray with the mosquitoes and everything, they're creating all virus. Like even here, no, like I'm looking at them, they're spraying all the time. They're spraying crap to make us sick. All the kids are sick at the moment. So then, unfortunately, parents bring up to the doctor, oh, need a jab, or oh, we give them a nasal spray. It's all orchestrated. There's a big plan, and you just need to start teaching yourself natural remedies and just realize we've been duped. Hence why I went back a long time. We've been duped from the start. The guy that created this thing actually admitted it. And I've just another little thing. I had Dr. Peter McCullough. He's famous internationally. He's been in the Senate and everything. He's fighting about this all the time. My brother's dog, when he got a jab, got very sick, was bleeding and everything, and it died after a year. They were trying everything, and it was like died. I know somebody else, same thing. A few people I heard are animals, and I'm convinced that they conditioned people to think you get your dog a jab every year. My dog wasn't getting jabs every year when I was young, and he lived till he was 16. I don't see many dogs living to 16 now. Loads of dogs are getting cancers. Ask yourself why. And in a live call with Peter McCullough on a group podcast show, I was talking to him about that. And he goes, come to think of it, when my dog got the jab, he's been sick since. So he confirmed that live on a show. So don't be getting your animals jabbed, and don't be getting your children jabbed, and don't get yourself jabbed. Because if you actually listen to what I've just said, I encourage you to go away and get the different books. You can go away on any AI or read different books, and it'll say, oh, they're safe. I haven't checked with a lot of the AI, and it pushes an agenda. Even when I was given information proving that, like what I'm discussing, and it goes, yeah, you're right, but vaccine. Yeah, but vaccine. Oh, peer reviewed. Everything that comes out with science is pharma paying these people. So there could be 3,000 cases. You could have 80% failure rate. That goes into a bin nobody sees, and they show you the best of it, and that's what's pushed out. So just remember, don't be saying trust the science, because the science is all paid for, and there's very few people you can trust. So what I would actually recommend is follow the people that are actually exposing the lies. And I'd like for someone to prove to me, because I've had a few people on and they can't. They try to push their agenda. So my own opinion is none work. None. It's all a farce, and it's all to damage your system.
Totally agree. And to add a last remark to what you just said, there was an article in the Berliner Zeitung, a newspaper in Germany, which says that the European Commission has admitted that the COVID mRNA vaccines are admitted to the market without complete safety data. That's what the European Commission said. Yeah, so it's not, well, what they say, maybe these weird doctors or whatever. No, the European Commission has admitted it. Yeah, so, folks, bottom line, don't do it. Be careful. And don't think you are, by being a good citizen, that you're okay. No, by being a good citizen, your health gets destroyed.
And ask your doctor, are you getting a kickback for this, and record it, because he actually has to say it. He's liable if he actually lies. They're all getting kickbacks. I was writing a book before, and I know somebody in a top private hospital in Ireland, and I was asking her about which ones don't do kickbacks, and she said they all do. So I've got this from a top consultant. They all do kickbacks. It's all about the money. And the same with the jab. There was doctors ringing people going, hey, you need to come in, because they were jabbing people. So just remember, it's all about the money. So protect yourself. So thanks very much, Arnold. You'll find everything about Arnold on braingym.fitness. You'll find everything about me. Scan the QR code or go to roycollin.com. And as I mentioned at the start, I've just launched a podcasting course, school.com/podfodder. So be sure to check it out. Until next week, take care.